This is Living Power with Dan Hurst.
Today we're looking at this principle of the witness. And Jesus takes a few moments and responds. He's speaking to a number of people, but it includes the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Now remember, we're still in the very, very early part of Jesus' ministry here. And what Jesus has said and done, a few miracles that have happened, and some things that he has said, some teachings have come along, and it's gotten people all stirred up. And there are people that have started following him for different reasons. The Pharisees and Sadducees, who were the religious leaders of the day, were getting all frustrated about what was going on, and they began to challenge Jesus and began to question what he was saying and what he was doing. And so the things started getting pretty stirred up. And so Jesus makes this statement not only about himself, but about the people who follow him, the people who have decided to commit themselves to be followers of Jesus, or those who pretend to be followers of Jesus. And certainly he's looking at it from the perspective of those who are witnesses. Now, the word that is generally used for witness is the word martyria. We get the word martyr from it. And the word martyria is a word that's used interchangeably with the word testimony. It is a word that actually has a number of different meanings, and in this particular passage, there are three different things that it means. The first thing, and it's in verses 31 through 34, if you have your study guide, you'll be able to see this. Anytime you see the word witness or testimony in those verses, it's talking about judicial evidence. What is judicial evidence? And then in verse 36, it's used as a declaration about something, a declaration about a matter. And then in verse 37, it's used as to attest or to validate something. So it has different meanings that affect the interpretation of what it is that Jesus is saying. So when we look at the word witness, we're talking about somebody who is either giving evidence or somebody who is attesting to the character or the nature of a person or an event, or somebody who is just making a declaration of some sort that they really believe. And when we look at this passage, we're going to see 5 different types of witnesses. You'll see that in just a moment. But I want us to read this passage and begin with verse 31. What Jesus has said about witnesses. If I alone bear witness about myself, my testimony is not true. That's an interesting thing that Jesus would say. There is another who bears witness about me, and I know that the testimony that he bears about me is true. And in that verse, he's talking about God the Father. Then in verse 3, you sent to John. In other words, you went to John, and he has borne witness to the truth. John the Baptizer is also my witness. Not that the testimony that I receive is from man, but I say these things so that you may be saved. He, talking about John the Baptizer, was a burning and shining lamp, and you were willing to rejoice for a while in his light. But the testimony, the witness, that I have is greater than that of John. For the works that the Father has given me to accomplish, the very works that I'm doing, bear witness about me that the Father has sent me. That's an amazing statement. We'll get more into it in just a moment. And the Father who sent me has himself borne witness about me. What? His voice you have never heard. His form you have never seen. And you do not have his word abiding in you, for you do not believe the one whom he has sent. You search the Scriptures because you think that in them you have eternal life, and it is they that bear witness about me. Yet you refuse to come to me that you may have life. I do not receive glory from people. Now stop there. We're just going to take a look at that part of the passage for a few minutes, and then we'll pick up with the rest of it. Jesus was saying that people had a right to expect that his statement that he came from God would be confirmed with other evidence. That wasn't a problem. Jesus was not saying, hey, just because you want to see evidence there's something wrong with you, that's not what he was saying at all. If he was going to make such an amazing statement that he came from God, it would need to be confirmed and affirmed several times. This evidence that he gave, which was these miracles, brought proof that God had sent him. Jesus understood that. And he said, the miracles confirm who I am. But if the miracles confirm who I am, then how are you going to respond to that? What do you do with that? Jesus' point was that if he bore witness to himself, if all he said was, I am God, I am the Messiah, you should bow down to me and follow me and do, if he did that, then his witness would not be accepted by the Jewish authorities. There was a principle in the law that a person couldn't, now in our law, in our legal system, you can testify on your own behalf, but in that legal system you could not. You needed to have two witnesses. That was the way their legal system worked. So Jesus was kind of alluding to that and saying, look, if I testify on my own behalf, that's not going to be accepted. And so he was saying, I'm not testifying to myself. It's the witnesses that reveal who I am. If I testified it on my own behalf, everybody would see it as an arrogant claim of self-exaltation. So Jesus takes this opportunity to explain and to validate his ministry. And he affirms that he was not seeking independent self-authentication. What witnesses said or did, and this is really important because Jesus was saying this several times, what other witnesses said about him did not and does not change the truth. So what Jesus was saying is, there are witnesses to who I am, but that doesn't change who I am. I am who I am because of what God has done in my life and what he's doing in and through my life. In fact, later on in John chapter 8, verse 14, he said, even if I testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid, for I know where I came from and where I'm going. He said, now I don't need to testify and exalt myself. It's not about me proving who I am and convincing you who I am. It's not about that at all, because that's not what he was here to do. He wasn't here to exalt himself or to tell everybody, look at me, I'm God, I'm the Messiah. Jesus was, and this is so important to understand, he was content to submit to the Father's will and let the Father authenticate him. That was his approach. In fact, he said, I'm here to do my Father's will. That's what I'm here to do. I am just going to do, remember we saw this last Sunday, I just do what my Father tells me to do. I'm not here to exalt myself, I'm here to exalt my Father. Which, by the way, is exactly how we're to live out our faith. Submitting to God's will and letting God authenticate and confirm what it is that he wants from us. The purpose of the witness was not to impress or validate God. The witnesses that came and spoke weren't there to validate or to impress. When we are a witness for something, if we're a witness for Christ, it's not to impress God. It's not that we're trying to prove anything. The biggest mistake I think that a witness, a godly witness, a Christian can make is to try to prove that God exists. What a big waste of time that is. Because it's not up to us to validate that. God can handle himself in that arena. Thank you very much. He doesn't need us to prove anything. So it was not to impress or validate God. The purpose of a witness is for people to hear the truth from one of their own. I happen to know this is true because it's true in my life, in other words. I am a witness to what I have seen and experienced and know to be real. And that is what a witness basically does. One is a witness to what one sees and experiences firsthand. That's a very important part of it. Hearsay is not credible evidence when it comes to spiritual matters. It is not. Hearsay is not credible evidence in spiritual matters. What a witness is one who has a firsthand experience with God. A legitimate witness is one who has firsthand knowledge and experience. And That's why we see so many times the apostles, and we read what they said, and they talk about the things that they had seen, the things that they had heard. And in fact, in Acts chapter 4, Peter and John had been preaching, and they had been arrested for preaching, and they had been told, don't talk about Jesus anymore. You stop talking about this stuff. You're stirring people up. And their response to him in Acts chapter 4, Acts 4:20 says, we cannot but speak of the things that we have seen and heard. In other words, what do you mean don't talk about it? We talk about the things that we know are true. You do. We do too. You know, it's not about making things up, and it's not about hearsay. And I want to challenge you, and I hope you'll pick up on this today as we look at this passage, that the kind of witness that God is looking for is one who has a personal experience with Him and lives his life out accordingly. That's what God is looking for you. He's not looking for hearsay. He's not looking for somebody to say, well, I heard that God's doing this and this and this and this. It's not about that. It's about what is He doing in your life. What has happened in your own life? What kind of personal experience have you had with God?
On behalf of Dan Hurst and the Open Class, we want to thank you for watching. We hope it was a blessing.